So today we're going to be taking a look at a scenario where Norway forms an empire. Now, Norway once had a very large or expansive kingdom throughout the North Sea, but modernly it is now over here in Scandinavia. It once had Iceland and Greenland. But what if Norway wanted to sort of reform that empire that they had and make a new North Sea empire? That's what we're going to be taking a look at today. So if you guys do enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. All the support is greatly appreciated, and welcome to 2025, by the way. I did a live stream yesterday, hopefully, which sent off 2024. I'm still recording this in 2024, but you're seeing this in 2025. First video on the first day of the year. It's pretty cool. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into the scenario. All right, so throughout this video, we will have Norway here colored in red. This is a Empire video classic. It's just to help you kind of see where Norway is at, just in case you ever get confused. But these are Norway's modern day 2025, hopefully 2025, unless some weird event happens, but these are their modern day borders, and we're going to be making them a little bit different. So for this to work out, we have to get rid of this thing, NATO, get rid of that, get rid of the EU, get rid of the UN. Basically, any restraints that Norway would have on their expansion, we got to get rid of all those things, and now they're good. So what is Norway going to do first? Now, of course, they're going to have to build up a military to go on this expansive quest, so that is step number one. But step number two, I would imagine, is going after Denmark. Out of all their targets or possible targets, they have to be the weakest. So Norwegian troops will cross over the strait and land in northern Denmark and start pushing down the peninsula. Denmark is not a strong country, so they're going to get pushed around a lot. Norway can fend for themselves pretty well, so their military is having a lot of success in taking the Danish peninsula. Now they get over to Copenhagen. This is where the battle really starts, as they make a landing on the capital island and eventually take said capital, and Denmark surrenders to Norway. In this peace treaty here, we have Norway taking the Danish peninsula, and that is all. So Denmark does still exist, however they are limited to their islands. But part of this peace treaty was giving independence over to Greenland. So now that Greenland is independent, Norway could possibly, if they wanted to, go after that. But if they want to, they should probably hurry, because the United States apparently wants to buy Greenland again or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. Watch yourself now, Norway. But now Norway is going to cross the seas once again. I guess the Vikings are back, but they're going to make a landing over here in Iceland. And what do we know about Iceland? Not that much, actually. I know that their geography is mountain and coastline. Also, not very strong. I'm not sure if they even have a military. But despite that, Norway will make their landing and take their capital. I will not try to pronounce the name of said capital, because that is a tough task and I don't feel like doing it. Iceland will lose all of its southern coast, and hence they will have to surrender because they don't exist anymore. And we can take a look at this peace treaty. And unsurprisingly, Norway will fully annex all of Iceland, now making their empire span across the North Sea up here. All right, so far so good, and so far so easy. They've taken out two very weak countries, and they're not going to stop there. They're going to go after yet another weak country, this time being the recently released Greenland. Now, Greenland, of course, well, to put it short, they just got their independence, so that's one thing, I guess. Another thing is there's like nobody living here, and the third thing is they don't really have much of a military. So similar to Iceland, Norway will make its landing in the south where everything is, and from there the war is basically already over. I don't think you would have to do much invading, if any at all, to really capitulate Greenland or even get them to surrender. I doubt the Greenlanders would want to even fight a war in the first place, so they will surrender over to Norway almost immediately. And make a wild guess as to what Norway does in this peace treaty. If you said full annexation, you get a point. Okay, so now the North Sea Empire is looking a lot more I guess scary, land-wise at least. Power-wise, it's about the same. They gained a little bit from Denmark, maybe a tiny bit from Iceland, and nothing really from Greenland in terms of military. But they do have a lot more resources now, so you can maybe use those resources to go after someone else. The Dutch. We're going to go after the Dutch. Yeah, I'm honestly not too sure what Norway's game plan is here, picking off all these weaker countries. Sure, you can make an empire out of it, but you won't be a very strong empire taking out these small countries. If you want to be a very strong empire, go after someone like Sweden or Finland or the UK. But Norway is deciding to pace themselves, so they're going after these weaker opponents to get more land, more resources, and more population. But the Netherlands are probably the strongest opponent they've taken on so far, but they still don't really have much of a chance against Norway. So let's take a look at this peace treaty, where Norway takes over the northern half of Denmark. This is mostly because they just want to keep access to the sea here. Not really too interested in whatever's happening down here. You know, those are the barbarians. The Vikings, they lie up here. So with Denmark losing its northern coast, and I don't think they might have lost their capital, maybe actually. But what that I was going to say is that they're pretty weak, and what we could see here is one of three things. Either one, they just, you know, keep surviving, which is what I'm going to do. 2, they could unite with Belgium and form Benelux, or 3, they could unite with Germany and form Germany. But like I said, I'm going to keep them independent just because I don't don't think this would collapse them. So now back over to Norway. What is their next move? All right, looks like we're finishing off Denmark. The Norwegians start their second invasion into Denmark, and it goes even better than the first time, taking out the islands within a few weeks. And yeah, just like that, Denmark is gone. So in this peace treaty, believe it or not, they fully annexed Denmark. Could you imagine that? Okay, so Norway's been doing a lot of expansion. Without a doubt, a few countries have probably noted that they might be on a list eventually, and they don't really want anyone else to get invaded by Norway, so they're going to form a defensive pact. Those countries include the United Kingdom and the dagger, Sweden. Now, why is Sweden the dagger? Well, Sweden was actually next on Norway's list. They were going to invade them, but now they have formed a defensive pact with one of the strongest countries in the world, the United Kingdom, so they are a little bit out of luck. But are they? The Norwegians behind the scenes themselves have been cooking up their own alliance. In fact, they actually have a lot of supporters in Europe, mostly because they have ambitions against the United Kingdom. And what country hates the United Kingdom more than Norway? Well, Norway doesn't hate them, but who has a rivalry with the United Kingdom? That's none other than France. France will join Norway's alliance, and now Europe is looking like it might have a pretty large-scale war happening soon. And another country joins this alliance, Ireland. If you said Ireland the first time, you were right. I just didn't add them right away. Both of these countries hate the United Kingdom. Both of them are rivals with the UK. One of them is a little bit more serious, but the hate is there nonetheless. So now it definitely looks like something could be brewing. But first, the Norwegians will go down to Germany, and they're gonna be like, yo, we might start a war here, but we don't want you to get involved. You getting involved would ruin everything. So how about this? In a proposal, instead of you like getting involved and maybe helping out the UK, if we give you your claims over Denmark, will you just leave us alone? Germany takes this offer, they consider it, and they accept it. So now Germany has a little bit more land, or some of their old land in Denmark, in exchange for not getting involved in a possible war between Norway and the United Kingdom. But Norway isn't satisfied just yet. They want a little bit more firepower in order to take down the British and the Swedes. So they will now go down to Spain and get them to join their alliance. This is another huge pickup for the Norwegians, because Spain also has a historic rivalry with the United Kingdom. But with the Spanish joining in on this alliance, we also see the Portuguese join the British, and now Western Europe looks like it's about to implode. Quite possibly it could. All right, said Norway, let's just do this. So the Red Alliance will send a former declaration of war over to the Blue Alliance, and now we have a Western European war occurring. The Norwegians will instantly start their invasion of Sweden, as they are their #1 target. Norwegian troops flood into the country, dealing mass amounts of damage right away, and also sticking towards the Swedish coast. We also see the Spanish invasion of Portugal go pretty well at first as well, and fighting ensues in the British Channel as Ireland seizes Northern Ireland. So this war is going so far in the favor of the red team. However, the British are going to be a thorn for all of the red team. They have a very strong navy, and of course they themselves are a top 10 power, but France is as well, so it might equalize out. Back over in Sweden, we see the Swedes finally get their head out of the snow, and they start pushing back the Norwegians, cutting them in half. However, this is okay because Denmark does kind of connect right here, and they continue their offensive in southern Sweden, doing tons of damage to the economy of this country. Meanwhile, back up north, the Swedes are completely pushing the Norwegians out of their country. That's cool and all. So now Sweden's going to go ahead and hold a defensive front against the Norwegians while they try to fight back against this group down here. They do well at first, and then eventually it just stops going well, and Norway manages to reconnect up with their border, allowing for supply lines to flow. Back over here in Iberia, we see the Spanish completely capitulate all of Portugal, and now they start to send their armies up north into France in order to fight against the British. But now there's going to be another country joining this war, one that has kind of secretly been waiting for this moment, and it's none other than the Dutch. They want their freaking revenge. They want their seaweed back. So the Dutch troops take advantage of a kind of not paying attention Norway. They push back into the countryside, but fail to take the coastal areas where the Norwegian navy is staged. But this does still prove as a big loss towards Norway. And distracted by this in the moment, the Swedes do manage to do a large counteroffensive into the center of their country, once again pushing Norway to the coast, where they have all of their offensives at pretty much right now. Oh god, the French have landed in Britain. And this goes pretty well until they get absolutely rolled and kicked out. They had a very strong naval push through this little channel right here, but it was all for nothing because the Royal Navy caught on to it eventually, and they were smoked. Bad idea by France, and now they are losing the naval war, but Spanish ships are on their way. Meanwhile, in Ireland, the British do make a landing back in Northern Ireland and start to take back some of the land, not in open arms though. In fact, their own civilians are fighting back against them. And it gets so bad that Britain just pulls back out of Northern Ireland. They do not want to mess with it. Apparently they don't want to be a part of Britain anymore. Who would have thought? Hold a referendum. Okay, so this war is going it's going. It's a little bit stalemated right now. However, there is always going to be active fighting over here between Norway and Sweden. This is an active front with multiple offensives and counteroffensive occurring at the same time. Sweden makes progress here. Norway makes progress over here. It's just back and forth, as you can see. But there needs to be a turning point in this war, and I think there's going to be a new one pretty soon. Finland joins the war on the side of the blue team. That's not good for Norway, because now Finnish troops are crossing the border into Sweden and are rapidly approaching the Norwegian front line over here in Sweden. Quickly, Norway scrambles its forces to try to capitulate Sweden before Finland can arrive, and they go right up to Stockholm and get their butts kicked. They then do a pretty big counteroffensive across the center of the country, cutting off Swedish forces and encircling them, leading to a very large dying event. However, the Finns arrive, and immediately their impact is felt as they spearhead right into this encirclement and free any trapped Swedish forces as Norway starts to close in. Then they realign themselves in order to push back Norway away from Stockholm and start to take back the coastal areas where some major cities do lie. Elsewhere, we see the British once again fending off both the Spanish and French navies in the British Channel, and even the Irish Navy to an extent, if there is one. I think there's probably an Irish Navy, right? Anyway, Norway is sitting here in their imperial chair, and they're like, what do we do now? I have an idea. Oh, okay, so I guess Russia has had a change of heart. Apparently something that Norway either said or did enticed Putin to join the war on the side of France and Spain, and I guess Norway too. Dang, this is unfortunate. But what really happened is that Norway went to Russia and they were like, hey, Finland might get involved in this war. We don't think they will, but just in case they do you want to maybe invade them? And, you know, when they're distracted inside of Sweden, you can take advantage of that and sweep through their country. Russia's like, I'll think about it. They don't want to openly admit that they're working with Western countries like France and Norway, but they end up doing it anyway, sort of. More so if they're kind of on their own side here, so let's do something like this instead. The Russians join the war on their own side in order to take out the Finns in particular. They want some of their old Russian Empire land back. So the Russians will start to enter into Finland, and immediately Finland will pull all of its forces out of Sweden, and this is horrible for Sweden because now the Norwegians are sweeping through their country. But at the same time, Finland is also losing parts of its country, and they need to go fight another winter war. All in all, this leads to Finland's complete pullout of this war, and they and Russia will fight against each other on the sidelines of the Norwegian conflict. And now we're back even in this war. Oh my god, they did it. The Dutch won. The Norwegians are kicked out of the Netherlands, and this is surprising to them. However, they don't really care because they're focused on Sweden. And this is still stalemated. You know, it's really hard to invade Britain. There's a lot of bombing happening though. A lot of bombing, both ways. This could also technically go nuclear, but I don't think that's necessary. Anyway, back over in Sweden, we finally have the Norwegians reaching into Stockholm and finally capitulating Sweden after many months, maybe even years of fighting. Now the Norwegians can send their navies down south. I mean, they were already down south bombarding Britain, but they can fully send their navies down south as well as their air force and armies in order to attack the British Isles. But first, let's make a pit stop in the Dutch territory. Hey, give that back. You've been bad. Okay, so they successfully retake the Netherlands, and they even get more from the Netherlands themselves. And now it's all go on Britain. I'm here, said the French. I'm here, said the Spanish. And I'm here, said the Norwegians. That's 3 offenses. I'll make that 4. The Irish just landed somehow. The Royal Navy is decimated because the Vikings are just better. I mean, what's cooler? Vikings on a ship or a bunch of angry British people on a big metal tuna can floating through the ocean? I think we know what's better. The Vikings, of course. Oh, and we know that the Vikings really love Britain. London is taken, and they're pillaging very successfully against the British. They take Wales, move into Scotland. No, Scotland actually just surrendered. Turns out Scotland actually just didn't want to be a part of Britain anyway. So, all right, so the red team has won this war, a large part thanks to Russia. So let's take a look at this peace treaty. And in this peace treaty here, we have the Norwegian Empire now reaching across almost all of the North Sea. Scotland, they agree to free Scotland under one condition, and that condition is you become a vassal to the Norwegian Empire. And Scotland thinks that this is a little bit better than being a part of the UK, so they go ahead and go with that. But elsewhere, we have Wales getting a release, and we have a united Ireland. We have a united Iberia. France gets nothing. The Dutch are completely annexed, and Sweden is messed up quite a bit, but they do still exist. And Finland is also messed up quite a bit, but they also still exist. And that is actually going to do it for our Norwegian Empire. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and if you did, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. All the support is greatly appreciated. Hope you guys enjoyed. Happy New Year, and I'll see you all in the next one. And of course, thank you to all our super fans. This includes Freezoy, Zaylance, Georgie Badev, Deathlord182, Serminator, Pablo Sigma Cat, Deathstrider X, Hammertoad45, Connor the Gamer, Nevada Garbage Trucks, and DW Cool Dude. Once again, thank you guys.